semester's interviews. We mentioned just before I began the videotape itself that I would begin with a focus on the small group work that you did last week with your English 2 students in relation to their viewing of the documentary of Emmett Till. And you had mentioned to me that it was sort of difficult, as I know, that somewhat early in the day class, it was difficult to just get students talking both to you and together and among one another in the group. So if you could just tell me a little bit more about that and what your thinking is now that it's a week away, or not quite a week away.
That class has just always struggled. They're very shy. It's not just the fact that they're morning people, it's the fact that a lot of them are really shy. A lot of them have expressed to us in writing, whether it was a letter of introductions or weekly reflections, I'm just too shy to share, I'm a shy person. So a suggestion that we took with that approach was, instead of just giving students discussion questions, it's like get up and partner up, group up, talk about the discussion questions. We did follow your advice about possibly giving them sustained writing to first respond to the prompt, and then once they've done sustained writing, then come up and then start sharing and really delve into the topic. So I think that itself really improved. They weren't as quiet as they tend to be, but at the same time, now my thinking is for that particular class, and maybe all of them, just so that the thinking is much more developed, just really encourage that sustained writing before they jump into discussions. So first, always giving them individual thinking time, writing time, and then partner up, and then group up, and then share what you're thinking. So I think just moving forward, we usually just do like discussions, or like, here's the question up on the board, discuss it with your groups. So definitely something to keep in mind. I'm always going to go back to, like, first write it out and then come back, share it with the partner, share it with the group, share it with the whole class. So just something to keep in mind. And if that approach was taken so late with that particular group of students within the second period, and it worked and seemed to have some improvement, I can imagine as a future teacher, if I start that like first day of school, second day of school, it's just gonna hold up the expectation.
Yeah, and I've often heard it argued that one of the talents that sustained silent writing draws on is that capacity for introspection, the intrapersonal or interpersonal, I think it's called. I keep forgetting what the distinction is between intra and inter, but one or the other. Anyway, that capacity to look at yourself and reflect on what you've learned. For the purposes of people viewing this video, they won't know about the Emmett Till documentary and how that fit into the larger study of institutional oppression, personal oppression, and cultural. Yeah. So maybe you could talk a little bit about why you chose the Emmett Till documentary and how you saw that working in relation to your larger goal for this for the essay that the students are writing.
Okay, so the focus of the unit has been oppression, but breaking it down through the 3 different I's, so institutional, interpersonal, and internalized. Emmett Till in particular, it was more like a personal reaction that I had to it. Both Mike and I, my mentor teacher, we learned about it in college, and one time we were just randomly talking about it in a conversation. We were just like, can you believe you didn't learn about that till college? And I was like, I know, that was so huge, so tragic, so shocking, and I was just really shocked that I hadn't learned about something like that until I got to college, especially for the historic moment that it shaped civil rights eventually down the road. So when we did start talking about, we really wanted to do this unit on oppression, we started breaking it down. Okay, 1 week for institutional, 1 week for interpersonal, 1 week for internalized. So when it came time to picking the institutional, we were kind of deciding between 2 written texts. One was about undocumented immigrants in ICE detention centers, and the other one was about women who have hysterectomies while in prison, and they don't know, they're not aware that this procedure is being done. But the reason why we ended up doing Emmett Till was more the access to the information. The previous 2 weeks was about focusing on a written text, but with this group of students, a lot of ELs, a lot of just lack of motivation for reading and writing, and a lot of lack of self-confidence when it comes to developing those skills. So even though the other 2 texts were really rich, really powerful, it was more like the reason why we ended up going with Emmett Till over 2 more modern examples was because we just wanted to make the content more accessible for that particular group of students.
And of course, the making of the documentary is quite quite current in the sense that even though the events it describes are 30 years earlier, it's still a very well made. And I remember seeing it myself when it first aired on PBS about 2 years ago. And it's shocking, as you say. And even though I knew quite a bit about Emmett Till, the documentary revealed quite a bit because it was, of course, a reflection of what they have learned in the interim and some pretty important decisions that have been made about actually prosecuting not necessarily the killers of Emmett Till, but others who were involved in lynchings and killings during those years. Still shocking to me today, but saying that it's hard to believe that I was a high school student myself during those years.
I saw the documentary 7 times total, including the 3 viewings we did in class, was 4 times that just to prepare material. And each time it didn't get any easier to watch it. It just didn't.
Particularly the casualness of the killers and their confidence that they would be found not guilty. It just is amazing to me. Anyway, the larger question for your instructional practices and just in terms of your choice of Emmett Till, how would you describe your students' response to the visual material in the documentary as opposed to what you might have done with one of the 2 choices that you had of textual material?
Yes.
Did it make a difference?
So I saw 2 reactions when we watched the documentary that I didn't see when we read the previous 2 texts about interpersonal and internalized oppression. First part was when they showed the video, the image of what Emmett Till's body, the condition in which his body was found in. A lot of students, literally the reaction was, so that initial gasp or just like eyes popped like just wide open and just the initial shock of like, whoa, because in the documentary it's the picture of him before everything happens and then the condition in which the body is found. So just that initial shock, even though the other 2 readings were shocking, no one responded like with that gasp, with that eyes wide open, with that just total horror. So playing on the power of visual imagery, and although that image was quite current, I saw it quite a bit during the time. I had no idea that Mammy, is that right? Mammy Till.
Mammy Till. I had no idea of how conscious she was of what an iconic status that would have and how vitally important it was for the American public to see, as they did, exactly what the consequences of, for many of us, they're sort of do nothing attitude. They're sort of, this will go away if we just don't think about it. No, it's not going to go away. So you did notice a greater degree of engagement with the visual material. To what degree did you feel that was reflected in the uninterrupted writing that students did, or did you have a chance to read over their uninterrupted writing?
So I started reviewing a lot of the journals. Now I haven't gone through all of them. But just like the fact that people were able to write down, like, I was in shock, I was in horror, I couldn't believe it. So I don't know how I want to phrase this. So the first question we asked students to write on is, what would have been different if Mammy Till had not decided to have an open casket or had not decided to show the body? So a lot of people mostly reflected on how it wouldn't have created shock, it wouldn't have created the horror that it did, it would have hidden the issue. So I did see a lot of the connections that we wanted them to